Welcome to this video about the Siege of Kaffa, a historical event that took place in 1346. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the siege, exploring its causes, events, and consequences. To understand the Siege of Kaffa, we need to go back to the mid-14th century. At that time, the Mongol Empire had already split into several smaller khanates, including the Golden Horde, which controlled much of modern-day Russia and Ukraine. The Golden Horde was a powerful force that regularly raided neighboring regions, including the Byzantine Empire and the Kingdom of Hungary. In 1343, a group of Mongol soldiers arrived in the Crimea, a region that was then part of the Byzantine Empire. The Mongols demanded tribute from the local cities, including the port city of Kaffa, modern-day Feodosia, Ukraine. Kaffa was an important trading hub that connected the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, and the local Byzantine authorities refused to pay the Mongol demands. In 1346, the Mongols returned to Kaffa with a vengeance. A large army of Mongol soldiers surrounded the city, cutting off its supplies and preventing any reinforcements from arriving. The siege lasted for months, during which the defenders of Kaffa suffered from hunger, disease, and exhaustion. The Mongols, meanwhile, employed various tactics to weaken the defenders, including building siege engines and launching arrows and rocks at the city walls. Despite their valiant efforts, the defenders of Kaffa were eventually forced to surrender. The Mongols entered the city and proceeded to loot, pillage, and burn it to the ground. Many of the residents of Kaffa were killed, while others were captured and sold into slavery. But the worst was yet to come. It's believed that during the siege of Kaffa, a deadly disease broke out among the Mongol soldiers. Some historians speculate that it was the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, which was then raging across Asia and Europe. Others believe it was a different disease, such as anthrax or typhus. Regardless of the specific disease, what's certain is that the Mongol soldiers who had contracted it began to die in large numbers. Fearing that they would be infected, the surviving soldiers decided to use a gruesome tactic. They loaded their dead comrades onto catapults and hurled them into the city of Kaffa, hoping to spread the disease to the residents. Unfortunately for the Mongols, their plan worked all too well. As the infected corpses rained down on Kaffa, the disease quickly spread among the city's inhabitants. Those who had survived the Mongol siege now faced a new enemy, a deadly pandemic that would eventually kill millions of people across Europe. The Siege of Kaffa had a profound impact on the course of history. It was one of the earliest instances of biological warfare, as the Mongols had intentionally tried to spread a disease to their enemies. The tactic would be used again in later conflicts, most notably during the Siege of Fort Pitt in the 18th century. The Siege of Kaffa also played a role in the spread of the bubonic plague throughout Europe. The disease traveled along trade routes and shipping lanes, eventually reaching the Mediterranean and spreading to cities such as Venice and Genoa. The Black Death would go on to kill an estimated 25 million people, or one-third of Europe's population. The Siege of Kaffa was a pivotal event in world history that had far-reaching consequences. It demonstrated the brutal tactics employed during medieval warfare, including the use of biological weapons. The Mongol siege of Kaffa ultimately led to the spread of the bubonic plague across Europe, resulting in one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. The pandemic not only caused widespread death and suffering, but also had profound social, economic, and political impacts, reshaping the course of European history. Moreover, the Siege of Kaffa was a clear example of how war and conflict can lead to unintended consequences. The Mongol soldiers who had launched the infected corpses into the city likely had no idea of the full extent of the damage they would cause. The spread of the disease would ultimately have a devastating impact on their own communities, as well as the rest of the world. Today, the Siege of Kaffa serves as a reminder of the importance of understanding the historical context of major events and their long-term effects. It also highlights the importance of cooperation and solidarity in the face of global challenges, such as pandemics. As we continue to confront new threats and challenges, it is vital that we learn from the past and work together to create a better future for all.